Come on in, come on in. Sunday school lesson has kicked off. Hello, everybody. Sirwalterj, the Sirwalterj Show. I'm here. It is Thursday. Theology Thursday. Man's the day we sit around the mic and talk about the Bible. The B-I-B-L-E, man, that's the book for me. Whatever it is. Yeah, that song playing in the background. I love that song there. That's by the great Walter Hawkins and Edwin. Well, that's more Walter right there. Sure do miss those brothers. Love their work. That's another great show today. We're talking about a troubled birth. This is the Isaac story with Jacob and Esau. Well, it's not the Isaac story. It's Jacob and Esau story out of Genesis chapter 25. I'm just excited about today's lesson because it's going to help us understand some of the family quarrels that goes on in our lives and in the lives of these who we see in antiquity. Come on in, those of you who pay attention to the Sunday school lesson from wherever you may be and wherever you are. We're going to see a lineage here and the descendants of Esau and Jacob, and hopefully it will make sense to many of you who understand what's going on in the world during many of these wars that we've seen over the past few hundred years. Actually maybe a good couple thousand years. Jacob and Esau's family has been fighting ever since, and there's also Isaac and Ishmael's family is over there fighting as well, and some of them are here in America, and they just continue to fight wherever they are. And so just understand this is the way it is. It's like that. What? And that's the way it is, as they say. There is a wonderful timeline that I do see that I wanted to expound on, but I'm going to have to do that once I get into the lesson, because we've got to see how some of these stories kind of line up to what's happening in American history when it comes to family issues and struggles and fights. There's 4 fights that I do notice that is in American history. One is the Grahams versus the Tewksburys over in Pleasant Valley. It's a war that happened in Pleasant Valley. It's a feud happened in the 1880s. The Grahams and the Tewksburys, both livestock ranchers in Arizona. And they were actually friends and business partners, and they granted their businesses was stealing cattle. They were talking about theft from each other, and so neither family was a pillar of the community from the start, but then before you know it, they began to do a little thing, as we see in the scripture here. This next one is the Turks versus Joneses, the Slicker War of the Ozarks, and the feud between the Turks and the Joneses, both of Benton County, Missouri, in the Ozark Mountain region, and started like so many others at the time, on election day, which is getting ready to happen on November the 6th. And most men were given the day off from work, so they would visit the polls, which meant they spent a lot of times in the local saloons after casting their votes. And a combination of whiskey and politics inevitably resulted in fist fights, and before you know it, they were fighting. This happened in the early 1800s, and well, that fight went on for a long time. The Lee Peacock feud. In 1861, Bob Lee joined the 9th Texas Cavalry of the Confederate Army, and leaving behind his family in northern Texas. And while he was away, the Union League, a civil group created to promote loyalty to the Union and to protect blacks and Union sympathizers, set up a local chapter headed by Lewis Peacock. And after the war, Lee returned home to fight the League using their political weight to force the area to adopt what the community saw as unfair Reconstruction initiatives at the Lee and the Peacock feud. And then as you go further down, it's the Hatfields and the McCoys which many of you are familiar with mostly. Warren Johnson and sibling rivalry. And while the most famous feud between the McCoys and of Kentucky and the Hatfields of West Virginia dates all the way back to 1865, the feud mostly deadly era began on Election Day, again, in 1882. And 3 McCoy men killed Ellison Hatfield, stabbing him 26 times before finishing him off with a bullet to the chest. And the next day, as the young 3 men were escorted to Pikesville, Kentucky for arraignment, the Hatfield clan intercepted them, tied them up, and shot them in cold blood. And these are the family feuds that we've been seeing in American history. Even in fiction, we see the Romeo and Juliet story with the Capulets and the Montagues. I think that's the name of the family. All right, it was a forbidden for one to be in love with the other or to communicate with the other. We also see the feud of the families of the Samaritans and the Jews. They felt that the Jews were, the Samaritans were half Jews, okay? And this is why Jesus referred to one of the Samaritans, used the word dog, and then he met one at the well and began to speak to her, and she told the story that you're not supposed to be talking to us. Okay, this is the family feud that's been going on. There's family feuds that's happening here in America also among those of particular cultures. And this is going to happen until Jesus died. Family feuds will always be. And some of you right now are in a family feud because you're in possibly a blended family. You and your mama, you and your daddy and your brothers, y'all and your sisters were all one for years, and then divorce happened, and then your daddy remarried or your mama remarried, and now you got stepbrothers and stepsisters. You are the Brady Bunch. And now there's a feud going on there between not just you and your siblings or you and the stepmama, stepdaddy, but it might be a feud with the stepdaddy's family, the stepmama's family. It's crazy, and a lot of this can happen through marriage. Y'all see the movie called Troy. It's a great movie, and that was a family feud there. That was the whole the Trojan horse situation, okay? And we have these, and there's nothing new under the sun. The abhorrence of Esau towards Jacob for tricking him into giving up his share of the inheritance was passed on to their descendants. All right, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute as we read this lesson out of Genesis. There it is, Genesis. Genesis chapter 25. And what I'm going to do, though, I want to go to the NLT versions for those of you who kind of get tossed with the D's and the thous and the thuses. I get it, I understand. Sometimes it kind of trips me up too. We see at the beginning that Abraham dies, okay? He buries Sarah and then he died. Well, he marries some more folks, okay? And then it gives a descendants, the lineage of Esau. God still took care of Esau. Understand that. When he had Esau and the mama to leave, he did tell them, he promised mom that he would take care of them. Blessings to you, Pete. All right? And so the lesson goes to Genesis 26, Genesis 25 and 19. And this is the birth of Esau and Jacob. And this is the account of the family of Isaac, the son of Abraham. When Isaac was 40 years old, he married Rebekah. He married at 40, y'all. The daughter of Bethuel and Aramean from Padan Aram, and the sister of Laban. Laban's name gonna pop up again, so be ready for it, of Aramean. And Isaac pleaded with the Lord on behalf of his wife because she was unable to have children. You saw a lot of this barrenness happen in the family of Abraham. Hey, remember his wife in the whole barren situation? Remember that? Now we're seeing it again, and we're going to see it again in the family, the barrenness, okay? Because there's a law that has been instituted about that. It was a pride of the people of this time to be able to have children, especially a male child. And if that couldn't happen, you was considered an outcast, all right? Look at Samuel's mama, okay? The Lord answered Isaac's prayer, and Rebekah became pregnant with two boys, twins, but the two children struggled with each other in her womb. They were fighting. And so she went to ask the Lord about it. All right. They didn't spend, we don't know what she asked. We don't know the conversation that happened. The Bible didn't spend a whole lot of time. It just says she went and asked him, why is this happening to me? Okay, she asked. And this is a lesson to many of you who are struggling in these kind of situations, maybe of barrenness. Maybe it could be something worse. It could be something that maybe the child is growing and then there's a miscarriage, okay? And things that can happen. You should always be free to talk to the Lord about it. You should always be okay to ask God a question, because you've been taught never question God. And that is a problem that I've been seeing among the Christians, especially among Pentecostals. Don't question God. It makes no sense to me. It never did. I'm going to change these I'm going to change my headphones, because these are little, I don't like these headphones, okay? I'm going to change them. I'm going to change my headphones, y'all, because I'm used to mine, but I didn't bring mine. I didn't bring mine. And these are dead. All right, let me turn these on. Hold on, y'all. Hold on. Okay. And then still dead. Uh-oh, I unplugged the wrong one. Hold on. Okay, thank you, sir. All right, these are better. The other ones that I had on were just too loud. It wasn't his volume. It's just that those headphones are just a little more powerful than what I wanted. Okay, all right, so I was reading here, blessed to you, Danny King, the great Danny King. Isaac pleaded with the Lord on behalf of his wife because she was unable to have children. And so Rebekah went to the Lord. And why is this happening to me? Verse 23 says, and the Lord told her, the sons in your womb will become two nations. Now notice, God did not stop the process. God did not stop them from fighting like some of you do. Hey, what y'all doing back there? Stop fighting. Stop fighting. Now, y'all keep fighting because I want to see what's going on with you. I've done that with some of my children. No, y'all keep doing it. I'm going to sit back here and watch you and see what's this all about. Jesus Christ questioned God. Questioned God when he was on the cross. Come on, Linda McCoy. All right, Father, why have thou forsaken me? All right. His question was more so of a quotation. Pretty much he was quoting from brother David. But I hear you. And the Lord told her, the sons in your womb will become two nations. From the very beginning, the two nations will be rivals. And one nation will be stronger than the other, and your older son will serve the younger son. Oh, pause. We keep seeing this among the Jews. We keep seeing this among the Hebrews, where the firstborn tend to miss out. And not just with the Jews, but we see this prior to the Jews. There were the Gentiles of Adam and Eve. And you look at that family. The oldest killed the youngest. Okay, we see twins were birthed out of Adam and Eve, Cain and then Abel. Okay, and well, the oldest killed. And then when we see here, Ishmael was born first, wasn't he? Now, he was born of another woman, but he still was born. He was born of Abraham. And who gets it? Isaac, because he's the promise. And then Isaac have children. Esau is the oldest. And guess what happens to Esau as we get further in the lesson? And then Jacob have children. Reuben was the oldest. Reuben messed up. And so then Simeon and Levi came after that, and they messed up. And so who did the promise and the real true blessing go to? Where we get our Savior from? Judah. Send Judah first. And so the first one lost it, the second one lost it, and the third one lost it. It went down to the fourth boy. Okay? We see this practice over and over again as you see Jacob's children. Then they start having children, and then you look at the firstborn. That firstborn is messed up, and then the Onan boy, and it's a big mess. And then you got Ephraim and Manasseh. Okay, and when you see Jacob, when he sees these boys, he went to bless them, and then he crossed his hands like this. Okay, for those of you who are on radio, you can't see my hands crossing, but he crisscrossed his hands, and his father tried to correct him. Said, "Wait, hold up, no, you got to do it this way." He said, "No, I know what I'm doing." Okay, so this is the Joseph, and anyway, it's a lengthy, but it's a similarity of the firstborn missing out on the birthright. It's something that's tending to happen, and some of you have that situation happening in your own family. Some of y'all call them generational curses. Well, I don't believe in generational curses as the way you believe it. It has to be explained, okay? I just lost a whole bunch of y'all when I said that, didn't I? I can explain myself, not on this show. And when the time came to give birth, Rebecca discovered that she did indeed have twins. But the first one was very red at birth and covered with thick hair like a fur coat. And so they named him Esau. They named him Esau. And then the other twin was born with his hand grasping Esau's heel. And so they named him Jacob. Okay, Jacob. Sounds like the Hebrew word for heel or deceiver. That's what Jacob is, okay? Now let's see here. Isaac was 60 years old when the twins were born, okay? And then it goes into this selling of the birthright, all right? So when we look here, sometimes King James Version kind of gives you, sometimes I like to read in King James because some of the words that are used kind of help us understand, depending on our culture of understanding, because we've been raised under King James that some certain terms we recognize more so than using today's English of NLT or ASV or NIV and blah, blah, blah. But verse 27 says, as the boys grew up, Esau became a skillful hunter, and he was an outdoors man. But Jacob had a quiet temperament and preferred to stay at home. That was me. I had 9 kids, and my parents had 9 children, and I was the home boy, a real home boy. I didn't like to go out that much. I still, in my 50s, I don't go out that much. I'm at home and I'm alone a lot. Why? Not because I'm bored and lonely. That's just what I prefer. That's what's in me. Well, that was in Jacob. He was just quiet-tempered. And many people who personally meet me, they don't see the guy you see right now on social media, on Facebook Lives and YouTube, and all these other video platforms. They don't really see that guy. They see a quiet, mild-mannered, peaceful. I don't say that much. Sometimes I come across as quite boring, or something's wrong with him. What's wrong with him? Is this Sirwalterj? Who is this guy? I'm kind of introverted when I'm with people. That's just the way I am. This right here, what you see, this is just my brand. This is my alter ego. Yeah, it's just the way it is. Yeah, we are introverts. So yeah, come on, Linda. That's the way I am. And it can rub some people the wrong way because they're like, well, is something wrong with me? Am I not interesting? No, it ain't you. I'm just quiet. The cameras ain't on, so I don't have to put on that face. Isaac loved Esau because he enjoyed eating the wild game Esau brought home, but Rebecca loved Jacob. Rebecca seemed like is the problem. As you go further in the reading, she will be the problem. I named my daughter Rebecca, not because of this Rebecca, but because of what the name meant, or the name means, all right? So Esau was hungry while he went out there hunting. And some of you who, even myself, as I was coming up reading the story, I could not understand how a man would give away so much for a bowl of Campbell's soup. How was that possible? But I'm thinking like an American. I'm thinking like someone who lives in the West. And many of you read the scriptures and try to exegete or hermeneutics will be a better word. You try to use hermeneutics to try and interpret the scriptures by your Western ideologies or understanding. And you bring in your Pentecostal culture, what have you, or pop culture to try to break down the scriptures. And this is where we err. It's difficult. And so that's why I always tell people to read the scriptures two ways. You got to read it like a Jew, and you got to read it like a Gentile. And you're like, which one am I? Well, you pick. 29, one day when Jesus was cooking, I said Jesus. One day when Jacob was cooking some stew. I'm telling you, that Campbell Chunky noodles, ooh, that was some good stuff right there. Esau arrived from home. He arrived home from the wilderness exhausted, and he was hungry. Esau said to Jacob, I'm starved, and give me some of that red stew. And this is how Esau got his other name, Edom, which means red. All right, Jacob replied, but trade me your rights as the firstborn son. I don't think that Jacob came up with this idea right there on the spot. I think Jacob, like many of your family members, brothers and sisters, have been plotting this for a long time. He didn't just come up with this idea. He's been wanting that birthright for a while, and he's always wanted it. It was the most coveted prize. It was the most coveted heirloom there was the birthright from his father. He wanted it, and he probably felt that Esau wasn't worth it. I don't think he felt that Esau was worth it. And the scriptures don't say it, but I bet you, and I'm not a betting man, but I bet you Rebecca had a lot to do with pouring that in Jacob's head. I bet you that she groomed him. She prepared him. She weaned him to believe that one day this belonged to you. And here was his open door opportunity to get it. He knows, brother. We don't know too much about Esau other than been wild, but they knew each other. They knew each other's attribute. That's why he felt it was okay to ask his brother or to make this deal with his brother, because he knew his brother. Trade me the rights of the firstborn son. You ever been hungry? Anybody ever been hungry out there? And I'm talking about hungry and you didn't have no food at home. Hungry and you didn't have no money in your pocket. There was no money in the bank. You couldn't use your credit card or check card or bank card or a check or anything. There was no resources anywhere. And you were hungry and you knew you had to go to bed with nothing in your belly. Raise your hand. Raise your hand if you're sure. Because I have. Trust me. I know the sound of hunger pain. It's painful. They use the right word, pain. It hurts. Can you imagine doing that on a Monday and then the next day having the same problem and going to bed again with nothing on your belly? Anybody know what I do? Trust me. So you never know what you're going to do until your belly starts rumbling and ain't nothing in the pantry. So he says, give me. So look, I'm dying of starvation. He literally was dying. This was not around the corner. He's out there chasing wild game, and apparently he didn't catch much game. If he came home hungry, he may not have caught any game. And if he did, he caught something so big that he had to take it home and prepare it. Couldn't do it out there in the wilderness. Linda says, she raising her hand. She says, I can relate. All right. So look, I'm dying of starvation, said Esau. What good is my birthright to me now? Oh, I call this the Professor Howe effect. People always talk about me and my effects. I got an effect for everything in life. This is the Professor Howe effect. Anybody know why I said the Professor Howe effect? Anybody out there? Go ahead, type it in the thing. I know Amber going to type it in there. Y'all type it in there. Well, the Professor Howell effect simply is they were stranded on Gilligan's Island, Spain. They was on, and Professor Howell, not Professor Howell, not Professor Howell, who was the rich couple? Yeah, what's his name? No, what was the rich couple? The old man and his wife, the millionaire and his wife. Okay, yeah, there you go. The millionaire and his wife. It's their effect. I forgot their names though. And well, they were on the desert island with Gilligan and the skipper too, the movie star and Marianne, all of them. He had all his money. Yeah, the Howells. Thank you. So I got it right, Howell, but it's not Professor Howell. It's Mr. Howell. Yeah, it's still the Howell effect. And thank you, Amber, because I knew she was gonna do it. They had all this money. They couldn't do nothing with it. They couldn't spend it. And the funny thing about the island was they still was trying to get him to give them. He was promising them money on the island. Why? Because they always had this hope that they're gonna get off the island and be able to take that money with them. So that money meant nothing to the Howells because they still try to live that rich lifestyle on the island, but they ate like everybody else. They slept like everybody else. They was on the same level like everybody else. Well, that's Esau right here. He says, what good is my birthright to me right now? It don't help me. I'm getting ready to die. So, but Jacob said, first you must swear that your birthright is mine. Uh-oh. June, you telling somebody to swear. It's like in black families, you swearing, it's like saying, I'm going to swear on my mama's grave. See, swearing on your daddy's grave don't really have to wait. You really didn't care about your daddy, some of y'all. I care about my daddy, but saying no. But when you swear on your mama's grave or Medea's grave, whoo, my God. That's an oath that cannot be broken. So swearing back in this time was important because when you swore before God. And so first you must swear that your birthright is mine. So Esau swore an oath, thereby selling all his rights as the firstborn to his brother Jacob. Then Jacob gave Esau some bread and lentil stew. Esau ate the meal, then got up, and then he left. And he showed contempt for his rights as the firstborn. He showed contempt. Did deep. This right here, story here, can mess you up. You got to understand, there are laws that are going on here. And you got to see that some laws were established, or customs, and some of the laws of God kind of was established before before Moses. Sorry, phone rang. Before Moses, there were some customs. And then these customs, God decided to take customs and then make them laws, and he implemented them into the misfits of the 613 laws as well. Even tithing. Tithing was a custom before it was a law. Okay, so I remember reading, where is this? In Deuteronomy chapter 21, the law of marriage. Deuteronomy have a whole bunch of laws. Well, there's a law of witness. There's a law of warfare in chapter 20. There's a law of the unknown murder. And then there's a law of marriage in Deuteronomy 21 and 10. When thou hast go forth to war against the enemy, and the Lord thy God has delivered them into thine hands, and thou hast taken them captive, and seized among the captives a beautiful woman, and has a desire unto her, that thou wouldest have her to thy wife. This is King James, so you got to get through past the these and thus and thous. Then thou shalt bring her home to thine house, and she shall shave her head and pare her nails. She gonna trim them, y'all. And she shall put the raiment of her captivity from off her, and shall remain in thine house and bewail her father and her mother a full month. And after that thou shalt go into her and be her husband, and she shall be thy wife. And it shall be, if thou have no delight in her, then thou shalt let her go whither she will, but thou shalt not sell her at all for money. Thou shalt not make merchant of her, because thou hast humbled her. Y'all know what that means, right? If a man have two wives, one beloved and another hated, sounds like a Jacob situation, and they have borne him children, both the beloved and the hated, and if the firstborn sons be hers that was hated, then it shall be, when he maketh his sons to inherit that which he hath, that he may not make the son of the beloved firstborn before the son of the hated, which is indeed the firstborn. Ooh-wee. But he shall acknowledge the son of the hated for the firstborn, by giving him a double portion of all that he hath, for he is the beginning of his strength. The right of the firstborn is still his. June Harden, come on. This is an inbox conversation for me and you. Did y'all hear that? This was after. This is in Deuteronomy. So this is after Genesis. This is after Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Okay, this is going into you're going into after the Exodus. Okay, the law is established. All right. So God was fixing some things that was cultural. He was fixing some stuff, even with divorce. And men were divorcing their wives for whatever reason. Her breath stinks, so I'm gonna divorce her. I don't like her feet. She got claws. You know, that's feet. I'm not gonna. I don't like her. I'm gonna get a writ of divorce. And Jesus says, hey, stop that mess. It wasn't like that at the beginning. He says because Moses gave a writ of divorce to protect the wife. So women who are teaching the scriptures, or the men that is, who teach these scriptures to say that women are, they really were insignificant to God. That's not true. Not true. God actually instituted some things that protected her as the wife. It just seemed kind of gory the way some interpret the scriptures. Be careful of doing that. According to human custom, the area around Haran, a man could sell his birthright to his brother, and the birthright meant headship of the family and a double share of the inheritance. That's what's going on here. And Jacob is obviously ruthless, but the focal point is Esau's just for the present and tangible at any cost. Yeah, so Esau gave birth to the Edomites. Edom later became a fierce enemy of Israel. And these Edomites, God said a very, very strange thing. And what did he say? He said, I hated. He says, Jacob I love, but Esau I hated. And some people look at that, especially unbelievers, to say that, see, we told y'all, God does have hatred against someone. And this is the danger of trying to interpret the King James Version vernacular, 1611, and Shakespearean, Old English way of, and using poetic licensing and what have you when you're trying to explain who God is. He says in Isaiah that I create good and I create evil. That's what he said in Isaiah. But the word the King James uses evil, but the actual word is calamity. So when we look at these terms in Scripture, we make God out of something that he really is not. So when he said, I hate Esau, he didn't say that I hate Esau the man. He was saying that I do not like what the Edomites have become. He says, I don't like the Edomites. Yeah, I just answered it, June. Yeah, he didn't say, I hate Esau, like the way we think hate means. No, he says, I do not care for the actions of the Edomites, and so because they were trying to keep his people down. The reason why we don't know that is because we only read the scriptures in English. We only read the scriptures in English. We never read it. I'm not saying all y'all never, but we don't know how to transliterate. We just try to translate or interpret, but we don't know how to transliterate or take it back, or we don't know how to, because you understand that the scriptures were written in Hebrew, and it was written in Greek, and Jesus even spoke Aramaic. And so that's why it's difficult for some of us, because when we read English, we read words that have been changed and they have a different meaning, okay? And then King James kind of slipped in some words that was, I believe, mistranslations. All right, so when he was talking, when you go to get a good Strong's dictionary, get you a good Strong's dictionary, you know, the one with the numbers in it, and follow that word to that number. And when you see that number, up under that number, it tells you what that word means in Hebrew or Greek. And it's going to shock you. It's going to blow your socks off. That book, that Strong's book, have literally turned people from the teaching that they've been getting for 50 years. It has answered many questions from people who believe one thing or were teaching one thing, and they read that and realized, oh, I've been teaching that wrong all my life. When you read it in the original language of Hebrew, you realize, oh man, that's what that means. And also what happens is in these scriptures that when you see one word all the way back in Genesis, and then you see that same word all the way in Revelation, it may not mean the same thing. It don't. What you say, so should we study in Hebrew and Greek, June? Yes. Yes, you should. You should. Now I know the lesson is done, by the way, y'all. So can I spend some time on this? Yes, you should study in Hebrew and Greek. Now your next question is why? Okay. Well, here's why. For what I just said for the past 3, 4, 5 minutes prior to me answering, reading your question, how could you say that you know a God in whom a people gave us Jesus Christ? All right? A people, the Jewish people, gave us a Jew. His name is Yeshua. All right? And you don't really care about Jewish culture, but you're serving a Jew God. I'm saying it this way, I know some of y'all disagreeing, but that's fine. I'm saying this way so you can really get it. The scripture says, unto us a child is born. He wasn't talking to you. You wasn't around. Okay? Unless you are a Jew who's watching. And some of you who are so-called African Americans, you're Jews. All right? Some of you are, some of you ain't. That because you're dark skinned don't mean nothing. Everybody who white skinned don't make them European. Some of them are African. Okay? All right, so just because if he said, unto us a child is born, unto the Jew, and the son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder, and then he says, here's what his name is going to be called. All right, he gave him all these wonderful names, Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, okay, Emmanuel, God with us, so he had to bring the Father down through his name. You seen him, you saw the Father. That's why his name is Emmanuel. Okay, some called him Elias, some called him Jeremiah, and you know the whole story. But still, what language did he speak? What language did he speak? He spoke Hebrew and Aramaic. And if he spoke that language, and we cared nothing for that language, how do you really understand who he is? And not so much who he is now, but who he was back then. and because it helps us understand the lessons of what we read in the Old Testament and Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John in the Gospels as well. It's important to see it so that you could properly interpret, or what I use the word hermeneutics. If you don't do this, you're going to find yourself in a shaky situation. So yes, June, you need to read Hebrew and Greek. Study Hebrew and Greek. And you don't have to if you don't want to. But let me tell you something. I would never follow somebody I don't really pay close attention to. 2 Corinthians chapter 5 and 15 says this, because notice it says that get to know him by who he is right now. So studying Hebrew and Greek don't help you with your salvation. It don't. It won't make you more saved or less saved. It won't. He lives in us. We're the New Testament church. We're the body of Christ. Those other languages won't get me into heaven or send me to hell. You get that? All right. Now, but if you trying to study the Old Testament, if you're trying to figure out the Gospels, and you're trying to tell people this is what it means, this is what it says, by using your English understanding and never once go back and find out what the Hebrew and Greek word means, there's a problem. Yep, for clarity and understanding. Yes, Mary, good. All right, now, what Jesus did while he was on the earth prior to the cross don't really affect me. It's not conducive to my salvation. No. Him healing Peter's mother-in-law and him delivering the blind man, him raising Lazarus from the dead, it don't do nothing for me. No. These are great stories. Yeah, him being led to Pontius Pilate, none of that does it. No, it don't affect me at all. No, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to my salvation. Nothing, none of that. Until he got to the cross. You understand? So all that stuff that he did prior to that, now, the only thing prior to that that makes sense to me that is important is that he was born. Once he was born, what he did for 30 years, I really don't, it doesn't really matter to me. I'm not going to say I don't care. It just doesn't affect me at all until he went to the cross. Saul was saying, yeah, is the Hebrew definition of hate. It means to have a thorn against the Hebrew. Ooh, you see? Saune. Amber, now tell us, Amber, why did you put that there? Tell us why. But watch what the Apostle Paul says here in 2 Corinthians 5 and 15. He says, and that he died for all. Because look at what he's doing. He's talking about the love of Jesus Christ. And watch what he leaves out. You ready for this? Knowing therefore the terror of the Lord, we pursued men. But we are made manifest unto God, and I trust also are made manifest to your conscience. For we commend not ourselves against unto you, but give you occasion to glory on our behalf, that ye may have somewhat to answer them which glory in appearance and not in heart. For whether we be beside ourselves, it is to God, or whether we be sober, it is for your conscience or your cause. For the love of Christ constraineth us, because we thus judge that if one died for all, then we all dead. And that he died for all, that they which live should not henceforth live unto themselves, but unto him which died for them, and then he rose again. This next verse, though, is brilliant. He says, wherefore henceforth know we no man after the flesh. Yea, though we have known Christ after the flesh, yet now henceforth know we him no more. It doesn't matter. We don't really identify with him walking the earth and healing people and feeding the thousands. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't save me. How we knew him in the flesh as Jesus don't matter. But when he was led to that cross, then you notice Paul focused on that. Said when he went to that cross and he died, then everybody took notice. You ever been in a party? You ever been in a public room, a place where everybody's talking or having a great time or dancing, and then somebody coming in and pow, a gunshot go off? Now you got everybody's attention, don't you? Well, that's what the cross was. Pow! Yeah. See, we all chilling on the earth. We all eating, being married, and having children like in the days of Jonah. Everybody getting fat and having babies and living riotously. Yeah, that's the way they're going to be, he said. But then one day, pow! Everybody going to get an attention. Oh, man, I'm trying to tell y'all. I'm trying to tell you. So it is important. Different terminology in different cultures. Words and names have different meanings depending on the context that you are using the word or name. Come on. Y'all preaching this with me? I'm almost impressed. So, it's important that you know what these words mean in other cultures if you're going to read the other cultures' stories. Y'all reading somebody else's mail. So if you're going to read somebody else's mail, then who sent it? What was the interpretation? Or what was the manner of the person who sent it? And this is why we got one document called the Constitution. The Constitution was drawn up not by Europe, not by the King of Britain. The Constitution was drawn up by American men. But then they got what's called the spirit of the letter. What was the spirit of this letter? And what was the spirit of the Constitution? And how were they acting during that time of the 1700s? What mindset were they in for us to be able to properly interpret it today, that letter? We've got all these lawyers, thousands of lawyers and judges in America, and they all are trying to interpret one document. How do they interpret it unless they know the spirit of which or why it was written and who wrote it? Does that make any sense? So you have to also interpret the scriptures the same way. What is the spirit of the letter? Who wrote it in the customs? This word may mean one thing, like in the Constitution. There have been amendments and there have been ratifications and there have been changes here and there because they realized as America got older, its custom changed, okay? People are swearing by the Second Amendment, the rights to bear arms or what have you, but there's a fight over the right to bear it because they didn't have machine guns when they was drawing it up. It was just a musket, or what they call that thing. You shoot one, and then you got to reload that sucker. Okay? So if they had the machinery today, back in the 1700s, would they have written the Second Amendment the way it has been written? I don't think they would have. But it doesn't matter. It's still a settled law. It's there. And then in order to change it, Congress can't just change it. It has to be ratified, or there must be a constitutional convention, and then all of the states have to get involved, and that is one almost impossible act to do today. So the purpose of the letter, the scriptures, that's how you interpret it. So how do you do it? Not by your own understanding. You're leaning on this, and that's why we have so many. We have 30,000 denominations on the earth. 30,000, well, in America, 30,000 denominations. Why? One letter, all these interpretations. It's amazing. The word prophecy in the Old Testament is not the same word prophecy in the New Testament. They had a school of prophets, okay? And they had all of these minor and major prophets. But when by the time the Apostle Paul mentioned that, he said, I would that you all prophesy, it ain't the same prophesy. Because you need to go into the book, look at the letter, the word prophecy, and look at the number that is, and see which one they're talking about. When we don't do that, we birth these false teachers, the people who maybe not their fault as much, but it's still their fault. We give birth to these people who have been teaching the scriptures wrong, and full-blown denominations are birthed off of sometimes one scripture. So if it was a letter for them, why are we reading their mail? So why read the Bible? Rodney taught on it once, but I'm still confused. June, this is an inbox message. This is a conversation. And you know what? I probably need to teach on that. Maybe I'll teach on that tonight. How do you properly interpret the scriptures? Y'all want me to teach on that tonight? I can if you want me to. It'd have to be around 10 o'clock. But I may have to do that because it's important to understand. Yes, we're reading somebody else's mail. But again, remember I said, I think a lot of us, we're reading the scriptures. We're trying to read the scriptures as a Jew. And many of you are not Jews. So, but you're trying to read it in the guise of a Jew. And you don't understand Hebrew. So you're trying to read it as that. It's like a Spaniard coming in here. Maybe I shouldn't have said Spaniard. Is that politically correct? A person who's a Spanish person coming here and try to get me to interpret a book in Spanish. I don't speak Spanish. I'm an Englishman. Okay? That's what we're doing. And the perfect example was, I wrote a song. It was a great song. Everybody loved the song. It's called "It's Time to Seek the Lord," and I wrote it right before Y2K happened. So it was 1999, and it was a hip hop type song. And I had a Spanish guitar player, a Latino. Thank you, Amber Rogers. You know I love you, girl. And they had a bright idea. The singer had a bright idea for me to make the song Spanish, but put the lyrics in Spanish. And so I said, do it. So what she did, she went to a person who is not Latino, but a African American who knows Spanish. And what did they do? They took my lyrics and put it in Spanish, and then brought it to rehearsal. Says, here's your song. I said, wow. I don't understand none of these words, but I know I wrote it. That's nice. The Latino's gonna love this. And the Latino guitar player heard it, and you know what he said? He said, that's garbage. He says, that's gibberish. He says, I'm a Latino, that's Spanish, but I don't even know what you're saying in here. Yes, I don't even know what you're saying. I was like, what? Excuse me? He said, yes. He said, we don't talk like this. He says, that's like me talking to you in broken English. He says, that's broken Spanish. He says, a Latino didn't write this for you, didn't translate this for you. That's what we do here. I'll be back. Hey, y'all, I got to get out of here. I think the D. Curtis Randall show. No, okay, somebody's show on here. Y'all gonna give me the right updates. Somebody gonna give me a good update. Somebody come on after me and tune in next week, Wednesday. Hey, it's gonna be time to vote. By the time I come back, be at the polls. I love y'all. This is Sirwalterj Jones Show. Yeah, what he said, study meaning using more than one reference. Most people believe if to study another Bible, think that you are questioning the King James Version. Man, I question the King James Bible all the time. I did an entire show about the misinterpretations of the King James Bible. And I did it on a Halloween night. So that was 3 years on a Halloween night. Because if y'all keep swearing by King James, you're going to keep having a problem. And it's not popular to say that. So So do y'all understand why I said, do you understand why I said that this Latino says that this song makes no sense? Well, it didn't make any sense to him because it was broken. And sometimes we see this happening with people who, like Asians. You go to an Asian store, you notice how they speak our language? You see how broken it is? That's the way that song was. And he knew right away why, because he speaks Spanish. You go to a Jewish temple or Jewish community and start trying to speak Jew, sometimes they laugh at you. Preachers get up and say, the Hebrew word for lasciviousness is lawach lachlamach, okay? And you'll say something like that. Because in many cases, he wants to sound intelligent. Yeah. He wants to sound intelligent, but what he really said was go to bed or something, because we've noticed, repost the show on them misinterpretations of that. I'm gonna have to repost it or redo the show. Because McDonald's did that. McDonald's opened a store in somewhere in Japan somewhere, but the meaning of McDonald's was like dog mess or something like that in that language, because it got lost in translation. And they was wondering why they wasn't selling burgers, because McDonald's meant dog doodle. You know what I'm saying? Okay. We speak English, but we don't speak the Queen's English. They smoke fags, but that's right, fags are cigarettes. Yeah, but if you say that in America, it's homophobic. That's right, Amber. Fags are cigarettes. Mm-hmm. I can say a few cuss words on here that didn't mean what it meant now. The ark was built with gopher wood or shittim wood. And I don't have to tell you what the origin of shittim wood is, okay? But that's just the way it was. But we can't use those words today because of what it means today. So if y'all want me to do that show tonight, I sure can. Just give me a vote.
We do have a show over here since.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, let me get out of here. My bad. All right, I gotta go, y'all.
It's not me.
It's not you. Okay. You see, they changing stuff. I don't know what's going on. I love y'all. This is my show.